It's bowl week for Indiana football, and IU is off to Tampa as they take on Ole Miss. The Hoosiers, once again 6-1, the top 10 team per the AP poll, are taking on an Ole Miss team that's under 500. And well, we're going to start off with that on episode 175 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many people across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on December 29th, 2020. It's our final 2020 podcast, Matt, where I am your host, Nithin Christian. Here with me tonight is Matt Lukens. Can you believe it's here? 2020 is finally wrapping up.
Yeah, I feel like we were just talking about like the Australian fires like 2 months ago, and that was literally like the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, and like of the start of the year. It's crazy. This year's gone by so fast and so slow at the same time. I'm just so ready for 2021 to be here and for life to start to get back to some sort of normalcy soon. So.
Yeah, it looks like there's some good news about vaccines coming out and those getting distributed. Yeah. So hopefully, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But hey, bowl week is here. I mean, that's the light at the end of the tunnel Indiana football is looking forward to all season, and it's finally arrived. The Hoosiers are looking for their first win in a bowl game since December 31st, 1991, a Copper Bowl victory over Baylor. So yeah, you talk about this team who keeps making history. Well, they have a chance for the Hoosiers' first bowl win in 30 years or so. It's Ole Miss that's the opponent, and the people have spoken. We sent out a poll on the Hoosier Sound Twitter. We said, which topic should we lead off with? The majority of you said, let's get the Outback Bowl preview first. Let's push off being therapists for Indiana basketball until the second half of our podcast. So that's our lineup for tonight. Indiana's an 8-point favorite against the Rebels of the University of Mississippi, the over-under 65.5. So you can do the math. It's about a 36-28 final score projection. The game will kick off at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, January 2nd on ABC. The game's in Tampa, Matt. You're going. There's some rain in the wind in the forecast. As you look at this matchup, what stands out to you on the surface? Indiana seems pretty clearly like the better team going into the Outback Bowl.
Well, that's a little bit of an understatement, given that we are the only team in this bowl game with a winning record, and we've only lost one game. That was away to Ohio State. So yeah, Vegas projects IU as an 8-point favorite. It's on 12:30 on ABC, which is nice, an ABC game. I'll be sitting in the press box enjoying Outback, watching the game. So don't be too envious, but just be a little bit. There's some rain, right? As you mentioned before, forecasted. I don't know if it's going to be like a downpour during the game. It's Florida. The weather changes here in like 3 seconds. But if it does rain, I think that actually favors the Hoosiers, in my opinion, because, again, it's kind of hard to throw the ball, make sharp cuts in the rain. Which is something that Ole Miss is, they're an air raid offense basically with Lane Kiffin, and they gain most of their yards through the air. So I would favor an IU team that has, as of recently, the last time we saw them, had a running game, which would be nice. But on the surface, just my first, overview of it, they're 4-5. They have one of the nation's top offenses. They're led by a very good quarterback. However, they have the worst defense in the country. and we're like playing the most fire and ice team of all time, which is like their offense is extremely good. Their defense is terrible. They'll score in 5 plays or have a 3 and out, and that's just how it works. There'd be a fun team to watch as a neutral point of view, but absolutely terrible to root for and terrible to have your team play against, because, again, they put up 50 points. This is an offense that put up 50 points on Alabama earlier this year, somebody who is probably going to win the national championship this year. This is not an Ole Miss team that you look at them and go, 4-5, how did they make a bowl game? They are a good 4-5 team. It's just that now, with some of their players sitting out, I think now IU definitely has the edge over them. Whereas before, it might have actually been a close game because with IU, the backup quarterback, and a very good offense, and Ole Miss going up against their defense, it would have been a close matchup. But I don't think they're going to recover from missing Elijah Moore, their wide receiver, first team All-American, and then Tenny Yaboa, who's a tight end, who's their starting tight end. Both of them missing is going to be a huge hit to this offense.
Yeah, in fact, when I was looking at Ole Miss over the course of the last week, they remind me a lot of those Kevin Wilson teams that IU had, in the last under the last head coach, where it's just guns a-blazing on offense, and then on the defensive side of the ball, it's just chaos and holes everywhere. And Ole Miss is 14th out of 14 in every category imaginable in the SEC on defense. Yards per game allowed, pass yards per game, rush yards per game, points per game. They are clear cut the worst defense in that conference. And look, they've got a couple good players still on that side of the ball, but they're an offensively driven team. There's no D in Ole Miss, right? There's no D in Mississippi or University of Mississippi. So there you go. I mean, it's fitting to say the least. There are a lot of tie-ins between IU and Ole Miss. When you look at the coaching staff, Tom Allen, IU's head coach, obviously, used to be a linebacker special teams coach at Ole Miss. How about this? The last time Ole Miss made a bowl game was in 2015. Their wide receivers coach was Grant Hurd, who is now IU's wide receivers coach. Their secondary coach was Jason Jones, who's now Indiana's safeties coach. They even had Dave Womack as their defensive coordinator, whose son is Kane Womack, who's coaching in his last game at Indiana on Saturday. Like you said, Matt, Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah are their best players. As far as the guys on their team, right, because those two opted out, quarterback Matt Corral is where it starts. He's a dual threat. He's got a rocket arm. He's capable of scrambling out of the pocket and running for 100+ yards in a game. To me, he's clearly the second best quarterback that Indiana has faced all year after Justin Fields. And none of the other Joe Milton was all right. Talia Tagovailoa is all right. Sean Clifford's all right, but from a skill set standpoint, Corral, to me, is clearly the second best. They do pass the ball and run the ball really well. Even in their game last Saturday against LSU, I should say 2 Saturdays ago, they scored 48 points even without Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah. They did lose 53-48, but it was in a downpour, monsoon-like conditions in Baton Rouge. And even though it was a monsoon-like condition, they put up a ton of yards, and their wide receivers stepped up and made a lot of plays. It's interesting, right? In addition to Matt Corral, running back Jerry Onely is a solid player. Wide receivers, even without Elijah Moore, you've got Braylon Sanders, Dontario Drummond, and Jonathan Mingo. I believe Mingo was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2019, so he's got a great skill set. These guys are all 6'1", 6'2", fast, physical receivers, and are capable of scoring a lot of points. Let's address this, Matt. Indiana might get into a shootout against Ole Miss, and I know IU's built their identity on defense this year, but I look at this game and I say, hey, it might be 1st to 40. Is that how you see it, or do you think IU's defense can slow down this Ole Miss offense?
I think it might be 1st to 40, but in a weird way where I think we might have multiple special teams and defensive touchdowns in this game. Matt Corral has 27 touchdowns thrown this year, 14 picks, right? We haven't had an IU quarterback do that since Richard Lego was in town a couple of years ago. We've been blessed with some really good and clean quarterback play, but 14 interceptions, a lot of interceptions. I think he had 4 against Mississippi State, if I'm not incorrect on that. We're gonna get chances, and this is a ball hawking secondary, as you guys know if you're a Hoosier fan. So they're gonna get their opportunities to get some takeaways this game. So don't be surprised you see the boys in red taken away from the boys in pale blue, because it's gonna happen. And Corral's gonna give us chances to keep into the game scoring wise, because we should score on their defense with our offense, but we have a backup quarterback. And Jack Tuttle, I think, is good, but he has 1 game under his belt, hasn't played in a couple weeks, is now asking to go against play an SEC defense. Yes, they're technically the worst defense in the country, but when you look at the teams that they've played in week in, week out in the SEC, you go, okay, well, maybe the numbers kind of, their schedule did not benefit them in that they had no weeks off playing. So I'd be interested to see what our offense is going to do against us. I expect I think you probably agree with me, Nathan, a heavy load of Stevie Scott to help take some of the pressure off of Jack Tuttle. Ty Freifogel is going to get all the targets this game, I am sure, because Mississippi State's corners have really struggled with high pointing the ball in passes that are like 50-50s, as some might say. And of course, guess who really enjoys those and thrives, and that would be Ty Freifogel. So look for them, those 15-yard straight outs on the sideline to Ty Freifogel multiple times this game, and hopefully Jack Tuttle can hit that back shoulder, and we're gonna have a really good time.
Yeah, I mean, this game could be billed as the Jack Tuttle breakout game. I mean, it's really unlucky for him that his first start came against a really good defense in Wisconsin at Camp Randall Stadium in wintry conditions, at least as far as the temperature was concerned. This one is a huge drop-off as far as skill level, talent, physicality. Tuttle should be able to really cook against this Ole Miss secondary. They've got some good players. AJ Finley's the guy to look out for. He's got 3 interceptions this season, 6 passes defensed. He's probably going to get the assignment on either Freifogel or Watt Fillier. It's just still, though, the secondary has a lot of weaknesses. Like I said, in a monsoon in Baton Rouge a couple of weeks ago, they gave up 435 passing yards to LSU. And in previous matchups there, they gave over 300 passing yards to Mississippi State. How about this? Against South Carolina, the Gamecocks threw for 230 and ran for 318. I mean, even though Ole Miss won that game, that's a South Carolina offense that had a lot of weaknesses in it. Indiana should be able to put up at least 500 yards of offense in this game. And if they do, they're definitely going to be trending in the right direction as far as landing their first bowl win since 1991. Yeah, Ty Freifogel, right? 3rd-team All-American. We're going to talk about that in a moment here shortly. As you look at this, Matt, what are the specific matchups that stand out? Give me one thing you're looking for on offense, one thing you're looking for on defense as sort of a guide for our listeners who, face it, probably haven't, like I, watched much Ole Miss football.
Yeah, I can tell you, I grew up in SEC country. I remember watching those shark fin defenses known at Ole Miss back in the day before they, had some circumstances that I can't really talk about on the podcast. But, that doesn't stop the former head coach from getting hired at Tennessee. But that's besides. Anyways, or will be hired at Tennessee. So matchups, tirade over matchups. Tuttle versus himself on offense. Can Tuttle find a rhythm? Can he get into rhythm? Is the play calling going to put him in a spot where he's going to feel great? If he's feeling comfortable and making the right reads, as he should be, this game is going to be not a breeze, but this game is going to be maybe a larger margin than some might expect, aka Vegas and ESPN. And then on defense, 3rd-team All-American Micah McFadden against somebody who you just mentioned earlier, Ole Miss's running back. Remember, they had 3 really good skill position players. The last one left is Jerrion Ely. Yep. Jerrion Ely ran for, 218 yards. Or they ran for 218 yards. He had the majority of that against LSU. So look for Micah McFadden to take that 3rd-team All-American chip on his shoulder and put it against a very good running back and an SEC starting running back in Jerrion Ely.
Yeah, Ely's a solid player. He was named an all-SEC member, just sort of as an all-purpose player. He's also a kick returner for Ole Miss. He returned one to the house against LSU a couple of weeks ago. Ely had over 700 rushing yards this season and 9 touchdowns. He's not somebody who's just coming on here in the last few weeks. He's been a pretty consistent running back for them all season. When I look at the other side of the ball, I want to see how Indiana handles this dual-threat quarterback, Matt Corral. He's a real gunslinger, folks. If you haven't seen tape or if you haven't watched Ole Miss play before, he tries to do everything. And we talked a moment ago about how he's had 14 interceptions this season. He's had 2 games this year where he's thrown at least 5. And so, he's somebody who's not afraid to take risks. He had 5 at LSU. He even had 6 on the road against Arkansas. And again, Arkansas is not, not exactly a top 25 football team, to say the least, even though the CFP loves the SEC. They haven't given that much love to the Razorbacks, and Matt Corral had a really rough afternoon over there in Arkansas when they played earlier this year. So he's really confident in his abilities. And Indiana's going to face a guy who's not going to be shy, right? And Tywan Mullen has said this multiple times in press conferences with the media. Micah McFadden has mentioned it as well. They really like to lock in on one or two weaknesses they see in the quarterback and try to capitalize on that. And Indiana's had the benefit of playing a lot of young signal callers this season. That won't be the case with Corral. He's a redshirt sophomore. He started every game this season. He played in almost every game last season. So he's somebody who's very confident. He's really going to go out there. And who are the guys on this defense, right? It impacts all three levels. Can we see Jerome Johnson and James Head be impact players on the D line? Can Micah McFadden and Cam Jones do things as far as linebackers are concerned? And of course, the back end with Tywan Mullen and Jamar Johnson. Jalen Williams has 3 or 4 picks this season. Can we see those guys throw different looks at Corral and get him to turn the ball over? Because guess what? If he does that, it makes the life easy on Indiana's offense, who hopefully will get a lot of shorter fields and capitalize on those by scoring touchdowns instead of field goals. So, Matt, here we go. Outback Bowl. Indiana looking for their first bowl win since 1991. What's your prediction? Again, Indiana's an 8-point favorite. Over-under is somewhere up in the 60s. How do you see this one going?
45-28 IU. I think IU comes out is dominant offensively, is dominant defensively. Ole Miss is going to score because they're a good offense, but their defense is going to look like people running away from the Bulls. And the running of the Bulls, they're going to be running away from people like Stevie Scott, maybe even Samson James and Ty Freifogel and Watt Fillier and the rest. We're going to be running all over this defense. So I'm very excited to see the Hoosiers get their first bowl win on Saturday.
So I'm going to build up my prediction a little bit. I do want to. Yeah, no, for sure. I do want to build up my prediction a little bit just because I do want everyone to know listening that there is a chance this game doesn't get played. Ole Miss has said they're dealing with some COVID issues and a lot of guys opting out. We haven't heard formal word on which guys have left the Ole Miss program, if they have. But remember, there are certain scholarship limits and things like that. There are some scholarship limits that you have to meet, some thresholds that you have to reach in order to play the game. And, we'll see if Ole Miss can actually get to doing that. But when it's all said and done, assuming this game gets played, I think IU is going to crush the Rebels. I've got a final of 58-23. All right. Nice. So I think this offense, I really believe in Jack Tuttle, and it's not really from me watching him, but it's from me listening to what the coaches are saying about him. They're very confident in his abilities, and I think Jack Tuttle has said all the right things as far as the media sessions go, and he's really sort of carried himself with composure in that one game we saw against Wisconsin, and even the previous game, right, when Michael Penix Jr. got hurt. He came in the third quarter against Maryland and sort of coolly guided the Hoosiers home in a game that could have gotten a little weird. Indiana was firmly in control for the rest of that. It's just, guys, we've seen this type of football team before here at Indiana. And when a team like Ole Miss with a good offense and a bad defense goes up and plays a really good team, things can get out of hand kind of quickly. And I'll tell you one thing, I believe the Hoosiers are going to come out and play motivated, inspired football, and not just from the CFP standpoint, but you've got a bunch of Florida connections on this team, and the game is in Tampa. In fact, Micah McFadden is one of the guys who not only has the third-team All-America chip on his shoulder, he's got the hometown chip on his shoulder, having played at Plant High School down there in Tampa. So, yeah, I think Indiana's going to come out guns a-blazing. I'm not sure how many of the Ole Miss guys will play with that same edge. Just think about how Lane Kiffin is first year. A lot of those guys may not have been recruited to play at Ole Miss. So when you include all of those things, I expect Indiana to win by a lot. If that doesn't happen, I will be crying in my pillow on Saturday night. So, Matt, that's how I see it going. Is there anything else you wanted to point out about this Ole Miss game? Obviously, the Outback Bowl, it's a big deal for IU, right? It's not just some sort of, run-of-the-mill bowl game here.
No, this is a good bowl game. I know everybody was upset and rightfully so, about us not getting a New Year's 6 point. The Outback Bowl is good. Like, we're on ABC at 12:30 on Saturday, the 2nd, and there's some big bowl games that day as well, and we're on national television. Like, the Outback Bowl is a good bowl game. I'm surprised that we're playing Ole Miss. I'm surprised that our opponent isn't somebody slightly better from the SEC. But then again, it's us, and the bowl committee seems to have something against us. So this chip on our shoulder, I'm really excited to see how the players take it. Have taken the recent news. They might come out, and we might both be completely wrong. You might shut out Ole Miss, right? They might be so mad they come out and it's like a 60-7 game, and people are like, "What just happened?" Right? And I could very much see that happen. I could also see them being a little bit nervous, and maybe it being close for the first half, and then us pulling away. But I, in no way, see us losing this game. I would like to point that out there. Knock on wood, but I'm being very confident about it, right? Like, I'm looking up and down the field, and I'm looking at our weaknesses versus their weaknesses. We should not lose this. This should be a game that we don't lose. Even if it's a close game, that's fine, but we still shouldn't lose it because we are the better team. We have more experience. We have all of our players are healthy except for Penix, so there's no excuses there. We should win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said there. All right, so it's time to turn the page and ask who won the week in IU sports this past weekend. We're going to stick with the football theme because, like we said earlier, Ty Freifogel and Micah McFadden were named third-team AP All-America this past week. It's a pretty special honor for two guys who had outstanding seasons. You know who didn't make AP All-America? Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Shout out Big Ten coaches. So, at the end of the day, it's a big moment, especially for this Indiana football program that hasn't had too many All-Americans. The last wide receiver was pretty recent. In fact, the last linebacker was pretty recent as well. James Hardy, the late James Hardy, was an All-American back in 2007, a second-teamer then. And T. Gray Skills was a second-team All-American in 2016, according to the AP. So, while Indiana hasn't had that many as far as the program's concerned, they have had some success recently as far as these two specific positions. And again, Ty Freifogel, he's a Mississippi native. Micah McFadden, Tampa native. Pretty cool situation heading into this Outback Bowl against Ole Miss. So quick reminder, if you would like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. All you have to do is, in order to subscribe for free, is to search Hoosier Sound, the Hoosier Sound, wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosier Sound. All right, Matt, it's time to pivot. It's time to pivot, and maybe everyone needs to lay down on a couch and, get a glass of water or something and take a few deep breaths because we got to talk basketball. Got to talk basketball. Couple of matchups that did not go IU's way this past week. You and I look like fools for saying Indiana was going to go 2-0, beating the Wildcats and the Illini. And within 24 hours of us recording, the Hoosiers dropped that game to Northwestern. And Saturday put up a good performance, fell by 9 in Champaign. The offense just didn't have enough firepower in that one. Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis were great in both games, but Matt, what was the biggest issue you saw, whether it's in each game or even if you want to zoom out and just look at the week as a whole?
Lack of guard play. If I had to zoom out, an issue that has plagued the Hoosiers for the last, basically the entire Archie Miller era, right? Is a lack of competent point guard play and guard play. I mean, Franklin has been great recently, and he can take a pass. When I talk about the guards, you just assume that I'm not talking about Armand Franklin in this conversation. He had 16 points in the game against Northwestern. Against Illinois, I want to say he had 20. Did he have 20 against Illinois? He had 23 against Illinois. Mm-hmm. This wasn't his fault at all. It even wasn't even Trace Jackson Davis' fault, right? I thought Race Thompson tried his hardest and played decently well. I don't even want to talk about Jerome Hunter, honestly, but It's mostly the guards. The guards have been the problem all year, and by guards, I mainly mean our senior captain now Durham, 2 points against Northwestern. That's unacceptable. 2 points in 35 minutes, 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 50% from the line. As our senior captain, that's unacceptable. And then Rob Fennessy, 23 minutes played, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. He hit all his free throws, good. 4 points. We got 6 points from a junior and a senior guards against Northwestern, who's not known as like a defensive powerhouse, right? They couldn't buy a bucket, and they also couldn't defend. You look at their guards are the ones that killed us. Adige and Bowie, and Adige down the stretch, who was 6 of 9 from the field. Like, that's not on Trace Jackson Davis. That's not on Thompson. That's not even on Armand Franklin. That is on the 2 upperclassmen guards. And Rob said it in chat. Rob said we need Brunk and Parker Stewart ASAP. And I agree. I do think we need Brunk back. For as far as Stewart's concerned, I think he's an enigma. I don't know when he's going to be in the program, if he's even in game shape, if he's even wanting to play this year. A whole lot of questions need to be asked, but we do need Joey Brunk because this team needs to go back to playing bigger. We need Brunk and Jackson Davis back on the floor again to give somebody like Grace Thompson minutes off, or Trace Jackson Davis minutes off. He plays 36 minutes against Northwestern. Grace Thompson plays 28. We can't survive with Jerome Hunter playing in the 4. This team is an absolute disaster right now. So, Nithin, after my rant and talking a little bit and your win times, what were your thoughts on this?
The wind chimes are a very pleasant, sort of uplifting sound during this segment, especially when I think about this IU team. Look, I was in Assembly Hall last Wednesday night when they lost to Northwestern. It was a game I went in just natural mindset. Indiana was a 9-point favorite. I said, okay, they're going to control this game. They're going to do what they want to do and really get off on the right foot as far as Big Ten play is concerned. And then I noticed something different. Okay, I noticed something different. It became very evident to me that in Big Ten play, it's just different. And maybe I was naive. Maybe I was sitting here expecting Indiana, who I believe has still a really good basketball team and a really talented basketball team. Maybe I just felt like Indiana was going to play Northwestern like they played Stanford and Providence. And at the end of the day, that couldn't have been further from the truth because the Big Ten is different. For example, Northwestern's bench was right in front of me all night when I was at Assembly Hall on Wednesday. And those guys, it meant so much to them to make it to Assembly Hall and play that game. And look, there may have been no fans in the building, but these players really care about basketball and they really care about Big Ten basketball. It didn't matter if you were the 6th man on Northwestern or the last guy on the bench. They were all intensely involved in every possession. And that carried through to the players. And look, Indiana's bench is also vocal and they're also engaged. But here's the deal. When you look at something as far as what's the biggest weakness or what's the biggest issue that I saw in this team last week, it's that in Big Ten play, especially this year, every play, every possession, every minute matters. You can't relax for a second in this league. And it doesn't matter if you hit a big 3 in the second half against Northwestern to take the lead. It doesn't matter if you start 9-3 against the Illini. You cannot take a possession off. And this isn't just an Indiana problem. I mean, we've seen a slew of upsets in conference play, and we're only like 2 weeks in, right? Just last night, we're recording on Tuesday night. Just last night, we saw Maryland and Minnesota beat Wisconsin and Michigan State, respectively, as underdogs. And look, there is an upset pretty much every day, it seems like, in conference play. Every possession matters. And I think Indiana, a team that has guys that play hard and bring that energy and enthusiasm to every game, need to understand that more than anything else. They play hard and they care and they want to win, and all that is great and nice and perfect. But every minute matters, every second, every possession, because of this league. They know every little tendency about you. Ayo Dosunmu, the Illinois guard who scored 30 against the Hoosiers on Saturday, had a very vivid quote that he told the media after the game where he basically set Indiana up for his big second half run. And it's those types of things that Florida State, perhaps a better team than Illinois, may not do compared to Illinois. Same thing with Texas. Again, Texas is a top 10 team. And let's be clear, every one of Indiana's losses right now are to a top 20 team in the AP poll. So the sky isn't falling. But look, what did we see just a couple of years ago? A ranked Indiana team lost something like 12 out of 13 games in Big Ten play. I don't expect that to happen. But in this conference, Matt, man, it is ruthless. And every play makes a difference.
We have to be one of those teams that is ruthless. And so far we haven't been. You're right. And it was a huge problem against the Illini. I know I brought up a lot of points from the Northwestern game. We started with the Northwestern game, but against the Illini, we looked small. We looked outmatched against Kofi Coburn. When Bijanasvili came off the bench, we looked outmatched against him. Coburn has 15 points and 15 rebounds. Trayce Jackson-Davis had 8 rebounds for the game, 11 points, was 3 of 13. I know in your notes here it says don't blame Trayce. He was great. Are we sure about that? Like, are we positive? Like, is 3 of 13 acceptable from our All-American? No. Let's be honest here. If Al Durham was 3 of 13, I'd be giving him the same amount of crap. And speaking of Al Durham, he's 4 of 12, 1 of 5 from 3. That is unacceptable. I'm sorry. You can't shoot 20% from 3 in a game as a senior leader and expect for us to get a win. I mean, lose by 9 to Illinois. Not terrible, but this team, we expect more as fans. We expect more out of Archie Miller at his 4th year at IU. And we're obviously not seeing it. It was nice seeing Leal get 5 minutes in that game because you know he's a threat from 3. It was nice seeing Christian Lander play that game. Even though he didn't score, he felt like when you're out there, you felt like he was trying to do something. I don't feel the same way about somebody like who didn't start against Illinois. That's Rob Fennessy. He was 17 minutes played, 2 of 5 from the field, had 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, and a turnover. 4 points. And every time he has the ball, he kind of dribbles it in, takes 2 dribbles in, and turns around and sits there at the top of the key and dribbles the ball for 10 seconds, and then they run a play. Yeah. And I tweeted
dribble.
I tweeted it when we were playing this game, and I was like, nobody knows the play. Because every time he runs it, nobody knows what's going on. I don't know if it's communication from the bench. I don't know if it's Rob's not being loud enough. I don't know if Rob doesn't know what the play he just called was. But the communication has to be figured out because we have a point guard on the floor who's running point for an offense that's not running offense. They're running chaos. And that's a real issue. Armand Franklin was lights out against Illinois. If you had told me before the game we get 23 points, 5 of 6 from 3 from Armand, I'm like, oh, we won the game by 10. Right? Because I'm expecting 20-something points from Trayce. I'm expecting at least 10 points from Race Thompson. You know, I'm thinking one of Al or Leal or Fennessy or Lander got more than 6 or 7 points. Yeah. And we're sitting here with a 9-point loss. It's unacceptable. And the defense, too. Somebody like Rob Fennessy, he's supposed to be our defensive point guard, right? He's supposed to be our defensive stopper. Your matchup that you come into play against, Dosunmu, Ayo, has 30 points on your head. Where's your contributions, huh? Where's your fight? Say, hey, maybe I shouldn't let this guy score. And to Trayce Jackson-Davis, you brought up the quote about him being lazy on the ball screens. If you want to yell at people after we lose games, you want to be mad about the Florida State game, that's fine. I really enjoy that. But then you have to go out there and set an example. Yeah. You played 30 minutes. They gave you less minutes in this game because of foul trouble, albeit,
right,
than in the Northwestern game. And you're going to be lazy on ball screens late in the game against an All-American, another top 10 Big Ten player, superstar player in Dosunmu. That's unacceptable as well. So terrible week for the program. And all of this starts where, Nithin? It starts with the coach, right?
The man at the top.
It starts with the man at the top. The buck stops here, right?
That's right.
Archie Miller has got to win this next game and turn the season around. Again, the next game for the Hoosiers is Penn State at home.
Gotta win.
Is that tomorrow night? Tomorrow night, 8:30 on Big Ten. We have to win this game. This is a good, not good Penn State team. A decent Penn State team that has big wins, right? They've beaten Virginia Tech. I believe the matchup predictor says it's a 69% chance for IU to win, so 70% chance for IU to win. That's great, but this is a must-win game. It's a must-win game against Maryland, and to be honest, we have to put on a good performance against Wisconsin.
So absolutely.
The next 3 games are crucial, not just for the season, but I think honestly for Archie Miller's tenure at IU. This is right here at sitting at 5-4 in 2020 with no fans in the stands. Is Archie Miller's job right here.
It's on the line.
We have a new athletic director who's going to want to put a stamp on the program, right? I'm not running ahead of myself thinking that, right? He hasn't made an NCAA tournament yet. We would assume he would have made one last year, but still not made one. He's up for it this year. This team, he has an All-American Trace Jackson Davis. He had an All-American candidate in Jawan Morgan. He's had good players like Romeo Langford and company. So, and that team underperformed, but we gave him a pass. If this team starts to underperform in a league that is so up for grabs because everybody is at the same skill level, and anybody can be anybody the same night. If we're in the bottom 5 of this Big Ten, somebody like Purdue who just came back against Rutgers tonight, and it places above us, there has to be some serious thought into maybe making a coaching change at the end of the year. And I was totally on the Archie all-in train, Nithin. I have always been a stout supporter of he'll turn it around, he'll figure it out, he'll turn it around. There's a reason why all the national guys were like, this is a great hire, this is a home run hire, this is a grand slam hire, he's the perfect guy, yada, 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 yada. I am starting to stamp my ticket on the out train. And he's got 3 games to prove it to me, starting with Penn State.
Oops. Yeah. So, I mean, when it's all said and done, I mean, there are a couple things I wanted to address there. I'm still not going to point my finger at Trace Jackson Davis, right? He still came up and had, overall a solid game against Illinois, fighting off foul trouble. Rob Fennessy and Al Durham, though, are the guys I'm looking at. And like you said, Matt, the Fennessy matchup was Dosunmu. But remember, he also came off the bench to guard Andre Corbello in that game, the 4-star freshman. And Corbello dominated that matchup. He had 5 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Corbello was active when he was in the game. He was involved and he was engaged and he was putting up that production on the box, in the box score. Fennessy, not so much. So absolutely. I mean, that's where Indiana's got to take a deep look within themselves. And this is where the Big Ten's really hard. And this is the type of recommendation I would make to Archie Miller as he goes to bed tonight on December whatever the day is today, December 29th. All the days mesh together. Anyway, I know we're in December and we're close to the end of 2020. So as Archie Miller goes to bed tonight, the one thing I'm going to tell him is look, it's 2020. The word of the year in 2020 has been flexibility. The ability for people to adapt and to be versatile and to think on their feet and to adjust on the fly. And Archie Miller is going to have to do a lot more of that because, look, I bet you his system was great at Dayton, okay? Yep. And I bet you, and I know the recruiting has been excellent under Archie Miller, whether it's high schoolers, whether it's transfers. He has crushed it in the recruiting game. Yep. But let me give you an example of where I think Archie Miller struggles to adjust, whereas a coach like Chris Collins or Northwestern did a great job. In that game against the Wildcats, Chase Audige was in trouble all game with foul trouble. Came in at the end, hit a couple shots, and Chris Collins let him cook. Because you know what? Chase Audige was feeling it, and a couple other guys like Trey Berry and maybe Boo Booey that day, not as great. Deej got that chance to cook, crushed Indiana at the end of that game. Same deal with Ilo Dosunmu. He wasn't having a great game, but the final 10 minutes, he hit a couple shots, convinced Brad Underwood, hey, it's my time. I'm the star here. You're going to have to. And if you don't give me the ball, I'm just taking the ball. I'm just going out there. Yeah. And I mean, I understand that's a star player sort of saying, taking that assertiveness to another level. But this is where the coaching staff is. I understand it's hard. I mean, they are spending 4 days here to game plan for Penn State, and then another 2 or 3 days to game plan for Maryland. And you think you have all the answers. You think all this and you think all that. But Rob Fennessy and Al Durham flat out cannot get that much playing time anymore. No. That's really what it comes down to. You cannot play them unless you are rolling out 3 guards or unless you have major foul trouble or injury trouble in a game coming up. It's got to be Armaan Franklin as your number 1 guard. And then you maybe let Christian Lander figure it out. Yep. Because you know what you're getting from Al Durham and Rob Fennessy. And let's face it, Christian Lander, he didn't get those non-conference games to work through some of his weaknesses except against North Alabama and Tennessee Tech. Yep. But, hey, he was +3 in the first half against Illinois, and then Archie Miller didn't play him after halftime.
Yeah.
First of all, is that putting your team in the best position to win? And then second of all, that's, an opportunity for a good player who's young, just a freshman, Big Ten's brutal on everyone, freshmen to seniors and graduate transfers and all that. That's an opportunity for Christian Lander, to get rewarded for his playing time, and he didn't get that chance. So that flexibility and that ability to adjust and adapt is, it's not just, hey, Archie Miller's the problem. This is the recommendation I would have for him going forward. So, Matt, let me ask you this. New Year's Day is on Friday.
Yep.
What's your New Year's resolution for this team? Because, man, they're still good. They're still talented. And Big Ten teams are going to lose a lot of games this season, right? The champion's probably going to have 6, if not 7 losses this year. What's your New Year's resolution for this basketball team?
That's a great question. If I had to pick one New Year's resolution for this team, that isn't figure it out. It's not
all right.
Figure it out.
Thanks, Dr. Phil.
Figure it out would be the cop-out answer. It would be, for the love of God, go back to the high post action, the high-low post action with Trace and Race. It looked good to start the year, and for whatever reason, we've gotten into the Big Ten play, and we've completely abandoned it. The ball moves really well when it's not in our guards' hands, which is something that is absolutely terrible to say, but it's true. Start running plays centered around our best players on the team. Who are the best players on the team? Armaan's great off the ball.
Yeah.
Trace is great with the ball. Race is even great with the ball. We saw Race leading the break a couple of times against Illinois. I felt like he had a better out. He played the break better than I feel like I've ever seen Al and Bob Fennessy run the break, because he didn't just run up and just immediately try to get hacked at the rim. He passed the ball, which is something I don't think I remember seeing since Tom Crean left, on the fast break. So put it in our best players' hands, the most unselfish players, the guys that we know can finish, and let them do work. And don't worry about the fact that, we're missing 2 upperclassmen guards who have decided for whatever reason not to play well this season. Play your best players. Let them cook. That's my New Year's.
Let them cook, man. And it's just, it's one of those things, right? A lot of times, even in previous years in this conference, you could work things out and you could figure things out during the game and you could sort of settle in those first few minutes. The reason Wisconsin lost to Maryland last year is because they were sloppy in the first 5-6 minutes of the game. Yep. They came back to take the lead, but that little segment of play allowed Maryland to have that confidence and end up winning. That's something that Indiana's got to figure out as well. And it's just, we'll see how it goes as this year plays on. My New Year's resolution for this team is play Armand Franklin, Race Thompson, and Trace Jackson Davis together for 40 minutes a game. And if their conditioning is there, make it happen, because that's Indiana's best chance of winning these games. I'm sick and tired of experimenting with Rob Fennessy and Al Durham and Jerome Hunter and who this guy and that guy and whoever. Those three players are the core of this team. And if it's not 40 minutes, it's got to be at least 33, 34 minutes a game, where it's not just that they're on the court, it's that they're on the court together, because that's Indiana's easiest path to win. Big Ten basketball doesn't have to be hard, folks. It really doesn't. And I'm not saying you got to run around and shoot 100 threes a game, which Iowa tries to do, but they also have lost a game recently to Minnesota. It's not like you got to do that, but funnel the ball to your best players and either convert on those opportunities or get fouled, because you just don't have any margin for error this season. My other New Year's resolution is give the keys to the car to Parker Stewart. And I know there are a lot of question marks around him, but I'll tell you this, he was a highly touted high school player before he committed to Pitt. He's obviously had different experiences in college, right? Being sort of a bench player on Pitt, being a ball-dominant guard on Tennessee Martin. If he's eligible to play, and if he's willing to play, and if he's able to dress for the Hoosiers starting in January, starting with the spring semester, get him the ball and get him playing time. Find it as much as possible. Experiment. Give him that opportunity to play, because like I said, some of the stuff we've seen just hasn't worked for the last 2-3 years with the ineffectiveness of those two guards, just with the offense stalling. So, Matt, before we preview Indiana's next two tough Big Ten games, what stood out to you on social media this week? Is there anything you wanted to shout out as you looked across Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those things?
Sure, and it's not going to be something for the basketball team, that much I can tell you. It will be on the football front, though. Tom Allen was voted by the fans as Coach of the Year on Fox Sports poll. That's at Fox Sports, Fox Sports Football on Twitter. So go check that out. You can't vote anymore, but you can go like the tweet. It's great. Yeah. He won. It's right here. Anyways, if you want to follow Nithin and I on Twitter, our handles are right below on the screen right now. That's on YouTube. If you want to go check out our YouTube, that's at Indiana HQ or at the Hoosier Sound on YouTube. We broadcast this live. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Spreaker or wherever you listen to podcasts. 2, go follow us on Twitter again at the Hoosier Sound. We just got our account back up, and at Indiana HQ. And then go follow us on Facebook as well at Indiana HQ. Much appreciated. Oh, and
exactly.
Instagram.
Perfect.
I forgot
Awesome.
Instagram. It's Indiana.HQ.
Oh, that's right. Because the dot's in there. Yeah.
There you go.
I think that's good.
That's it. I think we got it all.
I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so over on the Hoosier Sound Twitter account, by the way, the Hoosier Sound, we're nearing 1,000 followers. So you guys could be the ones if you haven't followed them yet. So look, let's face it, Matt, 2 must-win Big Ten games this week, and not just as far as the resume is concerned, but just the psychological and mental aspect of the Big Ten. We saw it really snowball with IU a couple years ago. We saw Indiana avoid that type of slump last year, and having strong weeks like one hopefully coming up here will really help the Hoosiers sort of right the ship. Again, if they win these next 2 games, they'll be 7-4, 2-2 in conference play. You can take a deep breath and really get charged up for a schedule full of top 25 teams. If you go over to ESPN.com right now and just look at Indiana's schedule, I believe after they play Nebraska, in Lincoln, every game for about the next 6 weeks, and maybe even riding it out to the end of the regular season, every game is against a top 25 opponent. So buckle up. Things are going to get crazy. And again, this is Indiana's opportunity to get wins against beatable teams in Penn State and Maryland. Indiana is a 5.5-point favorite right now as they get ready to tip off on Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on BTN. By the way, Kevin Kugler and Robbie Hummel are on the call. And if you ask me, that's the best broadcast team as far as Big Ten Network's concerned, and honestly one of the best nationally as far as college basketball coverage. Indiana is expected to win something like 71-66 or 72-66. That's what Ken Palm believes as well. Penn State was 21-10 last year. They would have made the NCAA tournament. They got as high as 9 in the AP poll, only for the season to come crashing at the end of the year. They also did lose 5 of 6 games at the end of the season last year, so they weren't playing all that great. They are the 54th ranked team in KenPom right now. Their offense is better than their defense. Their offense is in the top 30 as far as KenPom is concerned. Their defense is 72nd. And look, Indiana beat them last year when they were number 9. Indiana won 68-60 at Assembly Hall last season. The Hoosiers did lose to Penn State by 15 in Happy Valley. They've got a new coach. The Nittany Lions are coached by Jim Ferry after Pat Chambers was ousted due to some off-the-court issues there at Penn State. So, look, they're a good team. They've got good players. They start the same 5 guys every night. They play a tight 8-man rotation. But at the same time, they lost to Michigan in a close game. They lost to Illinois by 17. Of course, a few days later, IU lost to Illinois by just 9. So, Matt, Indiana's got to win this game. How do they do it?
You got to take away Isaiah Brockington. That's what you got to do. He's the season leader in points. He's 15.2 points per game. He's a 51% from the field. Is 70% free throw shooter, and he gets to the line. So the guards, I know this is crazy, asking them to play decently, have to play decent defense against Isaiah Brockington, and then they actually have some decent players all across their roster.
Yeah.
They do like to spread the scoring out a lot, but again, 15.2 is nothing to laugh at. Trace is sitting there at 20 points per game, so you can obviously tell who that they want to take away on our side. But what about you, Nithin? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, Indiana's going to have a big advantage as far as sort of asserting their physicality and doing what Archie Miller loves seeing them do, and that's drawing fouls. Indiana gets to the line quite frequently, and Penn State allows opponents to get to the line frequently. They're an opponent, not like Northwestern. We said last week Northwestern doesn't foul you too much. Penn State's going to foul you. And look, they play aggressive defense. They try to turn you over, and that's the other side of this matchup. Indiana will win if they get to the free throw line, I would say 22-plus times in this game on Wednesday night. And on the opposite side, Penn State loves turning you over, and they don't turn it over all that much. So if Indiana wins the turnover battle, I think they're going to win this game. If they even keep it close, I think they'll win this game. But if Penn State ends up winning the turnover battle by something like 5 or 6 or 7, then we're going to have a problem because they have a big advantage in sort of creating turnovers and getting steals and that sort of thing. Matt, prediction time. Indiana's 5.5-point favorite. Both teams are looking for their first Big Ten win. We were a little greedy last week. What are your thoughts going into Wednesday night?
This has to be a win. So I can't see a world in which we start 0-3 because I just don't want to be on Twitter when that happens tomorrow night. So we win. You like that prediction? I like that prediction. It's a good prediction.
I like it too. Do you have a fun score? Scoreline?
72,
or at least a margin.
72-65 IU.
All right, so pretty close to what the odds makers are thinking. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Indiana takes care of business. The limb broke last week when I was barely halfway out on it. The limb snapped and I fell to my demise. But we're going to do it again. I think Indiana's going to control this game. I think they're going to play fired up and back at home. I think that's a positive. I think the Hoosiers defense will crank up the heat a little more. So I've got this one a 70-57 Indiana, and sort of a low-scoring game, but Indiana gets the victory. The later matchup doesn't take place until Monday night, so actually it's a weekend off for the Hoosiers. They can take it easy on New Year's night and watch the Hoosiers football team play on Saturday. Not much to worry about, but on Monday night, January 4th, Indiana takes on Maryland once again at Assembly Hall. Again, the schedule makers gave Indiana an allegedly easy start to the season. Maryland plays slow. They're a team that likes to grind it out. Again, yesterday's game against Wisconsin was like watching molasses dribble slowly across the Kohl Center court. 70-64 final yesterday when Maryland knocked off Wisconsin. Indiana is supposed to win this game according to Ken Pom, but it's supposed to be close. 69-66 is what Ken Pom thinks, so it's a one-score game according to that site. No real noticeable advantage for either team. Maryland obviously doesn't have Anthony Cowan or Jalen Smith anymore, so a lot of turnover on that roster, but guys like Eric Ayala, Daryl Morcell, Aaron Wiggins, Dante Scott are guys that Mark Turgeon has had now for multiple seasons, and they're confident and they know that system. Matt, what should we watch for as we go into that Monday night matchup when Maryland comes to Bloomington?
Yeah, that's playing our style of pace. So far this year, we've really struggled with teams exerting how fast they want to play on us, right? That's half the battle, really. Are you playing their kind of basketball game, or are you playing the basketball game that's going to benefit you the most? And so far this year, we have been losing a majority of those battles.
Yeah.
We've won games in which, like the Butler game, we have played a game that was not how fast we wanted to play it. We need to speed up Maryland. If we can speed up Maryland, we win. Eric Ayala, again, you brought him up. He's their leader in not only minutes per game, but also points per game at 14.7. He's a former IU basketball recruiting target as well as a lot of
good player.
A lot of people that have burned IU recently are former IU basketball targets. So it's great time to be alive. Dante Scott shoots 51% from three as a forward, averages 27 minutes a game. He's not that far behind at 13 points per game as well. So again, just like Penn State, they're going to be very similar. They have a very spread out attack. They have 15 points, 13 points, 11, 9, 8, 8. Like they whoever scores, and they're happy with it. And they take slow possessions, and they try not to turn over the ball too much. And they're very careful with it. So IU needs to be very careful with them. Because even though they were picked to be one of the last teams in the conference, this conference has shown that nobody is a cupcake anymore.
So, God, absolutely not. Even Nebraska, to be honest with you, is not a team I would put in that cupcake category, to say the least. This is a Maryland team, and I liked what you said about Ayala. I watched most of their game yesterday against the Badgers, and we talked about adaptability and the ability to adjust. And yesterday, they realized about halfway through the game that guys like Ayala and Aaron Wiggins and Morcell can attack that Badgers defense on straight line drives to the rim. And they either converted inside or they got fouled, and then they managed to hit a couple threes that helped them really get some more juice in their legs. Watch out for that on Monday night. Maryland's guards are going to try to take Rob Fennessy or Al Durham or Christian Lander or Trey Galloway or whoever right to the rim. And Indiana's rim protection is going to be key. Their ability to create some turnovers will be key in that game. And we talk about Penn State had an 8-man rotation. Maryland really plays 6 guys. They do start Galen Smith, a freshman, occasionally, but he doesn't play that much. They do start Galen Smith occasionally, a freshman, but he doesn't play that much. So, they really just keep it real tight, Mark Turgeon, with that 6-man rotation. So if I can get him into foul trouble, that'll help. Once again, Matt, prediction time. Is Indiana, you said they're going to beat Penn State. Do they sort of add on to that? Do they hold serve at Assembly Hall a second time on Monday night?
Yeah, as they say, second time's the charm. So second week in a row, 2-0. Nothing can go wrong, right? And we can't possibly look like fools again. I got to think 2-0. I got to think this, to me, is the game that we win by a lot. Because I feel like they're going to come to Assembly Hall. We'll have grown in confidence a little bit. And then we're going to be looking at a team that's going to defend with some passion and some drive, and we're going to win the game 70-52.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as a Maryland team, they've got a real bumpy start to their season. They had to play Rutgers at the opener, and then they had to go to Purdue, and then they had to travel to Wisconsin. They even returned home Thursday to play Michigan. Obviously, the Wolverines are a solid team as well, a top 25 team. And then after that game on Thursday, the Terps will travel to Bloomington to play on Monday night. I do think IU wins. I think it'll be I think this one will be the close game. And I think Indiana's going to play sort of a slow tempo game. I think it's going to be close, nitty gritty. I've got 64-63, Indiana taking it by a single point over Maryland on Monday night. So that's how I see this week going. Yeah, once again, I'm counting on 2-0. We'll see if that comes to fruition, or if I'll once again look like I have egg on my face.
Yeah, well, at least one of us will be right, because one of us will get the close game, and the other one won't. So one of us will look smart, and the other one won't. So we'll figure that out.
Well, and that assumes Indiana wins both games. As we wind down tonight, Matt, your closing thoughts. What do you want to get off your chest here, whether it's related to the bowl game or IU basketball or something else that's going on in the world? Please don't mention the Eagles.
Trust me, I wasn't going to bring them up, but now that you brought them up, you Bears fan, you. Trubisky starts throwing touchdowns, and all of a sudden you think you guys are going to win the Super Bowl. Anyways.
Yeah. Super Bowl, baby. 1985, round 2.
Hey, Nick Foles comes in, you guys start the playoffs. I mean, hey, maybe I'll start believing too. But, oh, man. Final thoughts. Bowl game's going to be fun. I'm really excited to see this bowl game. I think we have really a shot getting a win. That's a monkey that'll be taken off the program's back, which is that we can't, for whatever reason, win the last game of the season. That happens to be a bowl game. So that would be nice hump to get over. Also, winning in Tampa, when Tampa is like the heart of our recruiting pipeline, would be a great boost for the program. So we'll take that as well. I'm sure there'll be some high priority recruits in and around Tampa for the bowl game, or they'll be watching for sure on ABC. So that's something I look forward to. And then for basketball, like I said, the sky is not falling, but it's cracking. And right now we got to figure out whether, we can patch up the sky a little bit, get some sticky tape, some flex tape up there, put it up there, or we're going to be needing a new coach by the end of the year. And I think this is the week that might end up deciding that, because I really think the team is really feeling the pressure right now, especially at 5-4. So hopefully they can find a way to overcome the weaknesses that they've had recently, find an answer, and all is good. Kumbaya. Yeah.
Kumbaya. That's what we're going for. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Big Ten continues to be just a relentless, brutal, grinding conference, and the mental, psychological aspect of it is as big, if not bigger, than the X's and O's part. Can you stay above the panic? Can you stay above the chaos? Can you maintain sort of a composure and poise every single night in this league, home and away, fans, no fans, you name it? Look, there are a lot of good teams in this league that are going to lose a lot of games. If you look at even Illinois, right, a team that started the season hands down, clear cut, top 25, a team that many projected
top 10,
to be a top 10 team, even a national title contender. They're projected to go 13-7 in Big Ten play this year. Okay, and remember, they've already lost 3 games overall, and they've already lost to Rutgers in conference play. How about a team like Wisconsin, right? Guess what? They're projected to go 13-7 as well. You talk about Iowa, 13-7. So even the best teams are all projected to lose 7 games. So IU's going to lose a lot, folks. It's going to happen. But is this coaching staff going out and exhausting every avenue, every measure to win every single game, to win every single minute? Because that's what it takes to win in the Big Ten. It's a tough conference. Every team is beatable, and every team can beat you. So that's what it comes down to when it's all said and done. I can't wait to see how this IU team does this week in these 2 really interesting but absolutely winnable matchups. So that about wraps it up for our 175th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.